What is up, everybody? Los here, along with my partner, Max. And welcome to another episode of Down the Middle. Very happy to have you in these rough economic times. What's up, dude? How are you?
I'm better than I think everyone's portfolios that's listening right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you put anything in the stock market right now, it's probably slashed in half. If you have crypto, that is also probably half. But no fear. I mean, you only lose the money if you take it out. Because I mentally kind of feel like I still have all that money, right? Like it's not. If anything, I've been buying some stuff. I was going to buy Shopify stock, but I still think it's a little overvalued. I think it'll keep going down.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you look at like this is Netflix. We need to get a way to also pull some of this stuff onto the video when we're like sharing screens. We will do that for next month. We'll get some stuff in there. But like this is Netflix pre-COVID, post-COVID, like 2 years.
Wow.
Basically, they've erased like all their COVID gains.
Peloton's barely a company.
Well, Peloton's interesting though because it's a no-brainer acquisition target for a handful of companies.
Right.
If you're Apple, for example, it's a no-brainer to buy. It's like it fits into your whole health ecosystem.
And they're going hard on that.
Yeah, I think. Let me see what Peloton's even trading at right now. But yeah, they
stopped producing bikes.
They've gotten
like
obliterated.
Yeah.
And it sucks because I'm a huge fan of Peloton. Like I've had one. It's been huge for my fitness gains, and I think it's superior in terms of its
I would agree.
Amazing product,
Yeah.
the content, the UI, everything about it is really top notch. But again, it's like it's hard to compete in that. Everyone's getting that space. Even Bowflex now has a
really?
bike. Yeah. The unique thing the Bowflex bike does is you can actually angle yourself. So while
that's
you're
kinda
riding,
cool.
you can the bike actually turns.
Yeah.
Which is pretty neat.
That's pretty cool. What was I going to say? Peloton's doing bad.
Well, yeah, Peloton's, this is there's a lot of companies that have essentially erased all of the gains they've had since COVID. They look exactly like they did right when COVID hit.
Yeah, so what I was going to say is I don't think it's a crash. I think it's a correction. Things got crazy overvalued. I mean, like at some point you could have a pre-seed round of $5 million and then your Series A turned into 50. Like what the hell? You know, like things were just getting crazy in the billions and multi-billions. And I mean, SPACs were going hard. It went like anything you could throw a rock in the air and monetize that thing. And now I think things are just correcting. I think the valuation of Shopify is getting more to where it needs to be. What is happening is that not seasoned investors are freaking out. Everyone's freaking out, but I don't see it as, I might be wrong. I'm not an economist by any stretch, but I feel that we're having a correction. It's a good time if you believe in a product to go and acquire stocks or get involved. I bought a bunch of Sandbox just because I think that's going to still be a big play. I called it at 20 cents. It's $2.68 today because I scooped some today. And I think that thing's going to go to like $10. When? I don't know, but I think it's going to. And if you believe in something, I think that's the difference, right? The one guy who is winning, I think he's up 7%, is Warren Buffett.
Yeah, I mean, right now I think the hard assets and value stocks are definitely the play in the short term.
Right.
With interest rates going up and with all the inflation issues that we're having.
Yeah.
But they're not sexy, right? So I think that's what happened is you had a 2-year period where just enormous amounts of cash were just pumped into the market. Mm-hmm. People were sitting at home doing nothing but just messing around on Coinbase and Robinhood and stuff like that and making money. Like,
yeah,
I think we talked about this maybe like early on when we first started recording, where we talked about how dangerous apps like Robinhood were and the kind of double-sided nature of it, right? Where there's this great benefit of getting more people
making it simple.
Investing. Yeah. Right? You want to have that. And I posted today a tweet about how the average American spends over $1,000 a year on lottery tickets. Yeah. And the average American has less than $1,000 in their savings account.
That's nuts.
I forget how many. It's like 75% of Americans couldn't afford a like $500 or $1,000 purchase. There's like, I forget the stat, but it's some type of like really low amount emergency purchase. They don't have money if something happened like that. Like if your AC broke or a big appliance broke, like most Americans couldn't cover that. But you have, over half Americans playing the lottery every year. And like I said, the average one's spending $1,000 on lottery tickets a year, which is terrifying. So I think these apps are great because if they can take that gamification aspect of the lottery and instead of buying scratch offs, which you're never going to make money,
Right.
you're putting it into stocks, which over the long run, you most
gonna
likely
win.
will make money unless you're day trading. But that's the thing. It's so people started looking at the stock market and crypto and any type of asset class as a get rich quick thing because people were over the last 2 years getting rich quick because everything was going up. And that's what happens again when you basically cost to borrow are zero and you're pumping money to the economy and forcing people to basically just sit at home and buy shit. That's what's going to happen. Now we're actually entering a not great time. And so this is when like separates most people, right? It's easy to make money and be a great investor when every single thing goes up week over week, month over month. It's much harder during pullbacks and corrections and people realize maybe this isn't so easy. Maybe this is scary and they sell, right? And it creates a spiral where people, they don't know what they're doing. They just sell and sell and sell and they sell at the bottom, they buy at the top. For me, it's always been, and like we've talked about this numerous times, I invest in things that I believe in.
Right.
I invest in companies that I think make great products, that have a great, clear roadmap to executing on macro trends and where I think the market and the economy and society is going over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
Right.
And I don't care what happens next week or next month or next year because I don't need that money.
Right.
Right. Like
it's an investment.
It's an investment.
Right.
Right. You shouldn't be treating your stock and crypto and everything investments as your kind of short-term cash, my short-term savings, right? Yeah. I'm just putting some cash in here. I want to make money quick, but I also need that cash because I don't have cash over here to pay bills and basic things. Like, no, you should have all of your needs covered month over month. You should have a good amount of cash in savings, 6 months to 12 months of living expenses. So worst case scenario, something happens, you don't need to pull cash for investments. And you also shouldn't over leverage. Like that's the other thing that happened with a lot of people is they said, hey, I only have, 10 grand to invest because I don't have a lot of money, but I want to make a lot more money, a bigger principal. So I'm going to borrow, I'm going to leverage, and I'm going to put in, $50,000, $100,000 into the market. And then you get called and you get squeezed and people lose their shirt.
I think it's a mentality that like everyone has that it just, I don't know how to change it, but there needs to be more content, even like this, that tries to like educate better. Because even with entrepreneurs, we work a ton with different types of entrepreneurs, and the mentality is the same, right? If you look at it on a stock market basis, like there's a lot of people that made a lot of money in 2020, and they maybe didn't even have too good of skills, and they're like, hey, we did 3 million, 4 million, all the way up, right? Now they're having troubles and they're like, hey, exactly what I was doing isn't working. I'm not willing to invest in testing on new things, new people, better hires, content marketing, harvesting for some stuff that could be great in 3 years. I don't want to do that because I'm used to just killing it. But if you want to build a real brand, a real business, whether it's e-commerce or digital or events, I don't care. It doesn't matter. You have to invest. Not every year should be like, I'm just balling more. I make more money. I'm taking more and more and more money. Some years you have that opportunity. Some years you don't. And it's how you structure your life and your business. But for me, I was talking to the guys yesterday about there's a business that we're heavily having to invest in. And I was like, listen, we're investing in this business because it's going to be sellable, like real sellable, like very high figures. And this business cash flows us. Yeah, it's not going to be a huge bonus year for things because we're investing in the future. But I'd rather in 2026 sell a company than in 2026 be like, hey guys, discover the new secret that blah, blah, blah. Like that's bullshit. Like use one thing to build something else if you want to build something. If not, I really think people are better off at jobs. And you, even with a job, you've got to figure out like, everything takes time. Like we're just so used to like this, bah, 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 bah. And that's just not real life. You don't get shredded in 14 minutes. You don't get rich in two strokes of a keyboard. Everything takes time, and like we stopped respecting that. And I think that everyone that did stop respecting that is suffering and doesn't know what to do. And the people like us that are just like, yeah, that's just life are kind of, nothing has changed for me and nothing's going to change at all. If anything, I see opportunities for us to make more money.
Yeah. I think you shouldn't be in a position ever, in my opinion, where, short-term swings in the market or the economy totally change the way you operate day to day. At least in our world, I think if you're an entrepreneur, like you should be focused on building things for a longer term and bigger picture. And if you want to have, if you want to make money in the short term, that's okay, but it shouldn't be your only thing. Like you shouldn't put all your eggs in a single basket that's just a cash flow basket, because that's really risky.
Right.
Like we have certain businesses that can pay us a lot of money every month, and we're not really trying to build something to sell, and this is just a cash machine.
Mm-hmm.
But we also realize that, hey, that something can happen in the economy. You could lose some clients. That business could stop paying us money every month. But we have things over here that are consistently growing and building their assets that we can sell, that we can exit, that have long-term enterprise value. You need to have the mindset going into being an entrepreneur. Like what you talked about this earlier, like even something simple as setting goals. Like you need to know why you're doing this and what your expectations are, and are they realistic or not realistic, right? If you're getting in this and all you want to do is just make cash short term, okay. But you have to realize what that means is you can make a lot of cash for a year, and then next year you can make nothing and have nothing to show for it, because you operated in a way that focused on short-term gains at the sacrifice of long-term upside.
And some people like that.
That's fine. Or you can get into it and say, I want to build something that's going to be, we're playing the chair game here. I can build something that is going to be massively valuable in 10 years.
Right.
And it's going to be more valuable next year than it is today, but I might only pay myself $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I got to pay other people more money than I pay myself. And that is what, if you look at most of the richest people in the world, like
that's what they did.
That's what they did.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in the game for long enough, you get to a point where you can have both of those things, where you can have your moonshots and your big companies that you don't need to take really a salary from, or you take 50K, 6K a year. And then you have your businesses over here that are consulting, service-based businesses that just, can pay out partners $20K a month, $50K a month, $100K a month.
Right.
And that's your lifestyle. That's everything.
Yeah.
And that allows you to focus your resources on the big stuff. And it allows you to de-risk and not worry so much about what's happening day to day. Because I'll tell you that, the first few years that I was doing this, it changed week over week, month over month, what we did, because that's how I paid my bill. Like everything came from one business.
It had to
make me money.
Yeah.
And so if something dried up, all of a sudden you're like, well, we need to chase this thing over here because this guy's going to pay us money.
Right.
And if you're on that roller coaster for a year or 2 years, you look back and you're like, shit, we've accomplished nothing.
We're back to square one next year.
Literally, I'm in the exact same spot I was 2 years ago. I've made some money along the way, but I've also lost money. It's like, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get stuck in that trap,
yeah,
in the short-term cash trap, and they never get out of it.
I think it needs to start in schools and like better education in schools. I mean, the messed up part is like you have people teaching that don't know what. No one even teaches this, right? And normally, if you have college professors teaching this, they didn't. Most of them didn't really even do anything. So, I think people have to try to start building a better education system. And then the messed up part is like people like us make some stuff like that. We know people that are doing financial advising and all that and make courses and content. And it's viewed as, some people view it as like, oh, that's kind of scammy. It's like, well, it's better. It's more real life education than what you're actually doing or what you've been taught prior, because that's outdated. This stuff is like day to day, like in the trenches kind of conversational content.
It is a challenge. I think I don't know the best way to fix it either, where you have teachers are so important.
Right.
Like the education is so critical to individuals, but also collectively to a country and to a planet, right? Having better educated people lifts all tides, right? It increases the odds of having an Elon Musk, of having a Zuckerberg, of having a, whoever might be, a Blakely or, but the problem is it doesn't attract the best and the brightest.
Right.
And I'm not saying this to be a dig there, because there's a lot of brilliant teachers and there's a lot of incredibly passionate, hardworking teachers, but it's hard to attract the smartest, most ambitious people when you basically pay a little above the poverty line, essentially.
Right.
In, you know, especially for like elementary and middle school and stuff,
Right,
where
right.
that's like formidable years. You need to have some system to attract truly smart, brilliant people in real world, useful industries. Like,
Right.
I don't know, the whole idea of, and this wasn't one of our topics today, but it's interesting to me, and I think it's relevant to this conversation.
Right.
The whole idea of like a liberal arts education, to me, is somewhat pointless, in the sense that the actual like Latin roots of liberal arts essentially means freedom to study.
Yeah.
And it existed because the Kennedys and the Rockefellers and all these families were so wealthy that their kids didn't need to learn a trade.
Right.
And so these rich kids could go to schools and they could study the liberal arts
Yeah.
because they could just
didn't need
learn
anything
for the
else.
sake of learning. They didn't need trades. They didn't
Right.
need skills. They didn't need to worry about earning a living.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been bastardized and transformed now, where it's like the standard, you need to get a liberal arts education.
Yeah.
No, most people, most kids need to learn the skills.
Right.
They need, you know, not everybody is going to go out there and be the next billionaire with a big vision or idea.
Right.
A lot of people are going to live their lives and they're going to work a job and they're going to retire, and that's going to be their life. And so the goal should be then, like, what job, what career can they earn the most
Right.
and have the most impact and have the most happiness? And, you know, for a lot of people, that might be being a welder, might be being a carpenter, right? There's these like trades that are actually
High paying.
high paying, a lot of job security, in high demand. And a lot of people that do them are very, very happy because they're
Right.
working with their hands, they're building something. It's
creating.
It's creative, right?
Yeah.
But there's this stigma of like, ooh, you're a welder, you're a plumber, you're an electrician.
Yeah.
I went to, you know, this liberal arts school and I got an arts history degree, and I
work at Applebee's.
yeah, or it's I live at home and I'm
Right.
working on my career. It's like,
Right.
it's so backwards. And so
Right.
I think that's where it starts, is like, we need to go back to the drawing board about like, what should we be teaching?
Right.
I think like liberal arts, if you want to go study for the sake of studying and be a professional, you know, academic, that's a choice. But I don't think that should be like the front and
The
center.
standard.
We should start with core skills that are going to give everyone the best shot possible at being successful in their life.
Yeah, you should learn trades inside of college instead of having to leave and join trade schools.
Yeah.
Because everyone goes to college and they're like, I didn't get a job, so I'm going to go learn a trade so I can have a career.
Yeah. Trades, skills, financial literacy, financial education. We should be teaching, like, I think we talked about this a few episodes ago. Like, you need to invest, it was like, what, $50, $100 a month. If you start at 16 and you invest monthly and you just increase what you save for the rate of inflation, you have $1 million when you retire.
Yeah.
Like $50 a month starting at 16. You tell that to kids, if you even just one day when the kids are 15 years old, it's the investment talk. You give them the talk, right?
Yeah.
Instead of the sex talk, it's the investment talk. And you tell kids, you sit them down and say, hey, I know you guys want to go out there and you want to spend your money on, you know, video games and X, Y, and Z, but if you want to be a millionaire, I'm going to tell you exactly how to become a millionaire. You're going to take your allowance. You're going to take your, you know, the money you get for doing, you know, odd jobs. You're going to take $50 of that, and you're going to put it, you're going to have your parents open a Robinhood account or a JP Morgan account, whatever it's going to be. Open an account. You're going to put that money in there. You're going to buy this mutual fund or this ETF or whatever it's going to be, right? And you're going to do that every month. You're going to set it up an auto deposit, auto invest. And if you do that over your life, you're going to be a millionaire. And that's the bare minimum. If you actually start making more money and contribute more money, you can be a multimillionaire.
They would do it.
Kids would do that. They just knew. Kids, like,
Yeah,
nobody
they don't
tells
know.
kids that until they're in their 30s and 40s. And by that time, you lose every day,
can't do
week,
that.
month, year you lose from your like teens to your 20s is insanely massive.
It ruins the
for compound
interest.
interest.
Yeah.
It crushes you, right? And so that's like, again, super simple stuff that just has a massive impact on how somebody's going to end their life in terms of their working life. Because, you know, frankly too, like, we're not going to, you and I probably, and definitely not our kids, they're not going to have Social Security. There's no safety net. Right now, we're paying to support a failing system so that way our seniors can live somewhat comfortably. But when we're there, it's not going to be funded. We're not having enough kids. We have a massive problem because the world isn't giving birth to enough kids. And eventually, in a few decades, we're all going to look at Japan, where there's just way too many people retired and elderly, not enough people working, contributing, which is a whole nother thing we can talk on another show about, because that's a huge issue. And I don't know how you solve that. But yeah, you need to be focusing on yourself. Like, I need to save for my retirement. I can't depend on the government supporting me when I retire. It's not going to be there.
Yeah. I've never thought about any of that because I'm like, even if it was, like, it's not enough for the lifestyle that I've always wanted to have. So it'd be kind of like an irrelevant amount of money to me, but yeah, people need to research this too. And, I don't care where you're at, because I know plenty of millionaires who are essentially broke and that are working the year-to-year flavor and game and stuff like that. And it's an addiction. I mean, making money becomes a gambling addiction. Doing like an offer in a business becomes like, oh, I've got it. And like, people really think they've got it. And I've just been on it for too many years and know, like, no, we've got to create like hedges against this. We've got to start investing. Like, life continues. And when you have kids and school and all that, like, you just want to be more and more secure. And I definitely think that it should be talked about more. And like you and I were talking about, people should also talk about their losses, because I think the thing is, everyone just sees gains, like win, cars, rich. And then no one talks about, like, yeah, I lost 40 grand. Like, this happened to you, like this business, and we lost this deal. We lost a client for $50K a month. Like, that happens as well, But the big reality is, like, it doesn't affect us because we treat that as a stock. Like, well, that's fine. Like, where are we going to be at the end of the month? What's the end of the quarter? What's the end of the year look like? We need to make improvements, et cetera, right? And so we're going to start, we've been talking about doing a show just basically talking about everything that goes wrong with things, because we could probably fill up a show for that, no problem. So let's go into the second topic. You can probably start this one off, but it looks like we might go to war.
Yeah, it's if you haven't been following the news, it's pretty likely that Russia will invade Ukraine, whether it's a direct invasion or just some type of destabilizing campaign internally within the current kind of Democratic Party that's running the country. But it's Putin just doesn't care.
Yeah.
Right? Like, everyone else seems to be like, the reason we don't really go to war with China and China doesn't go to war with us is because there's too much interconnected commerce.
Right.
And they know that if they call our debt or they go to war with us, it's a house of cards. Right. And everyone loses, right? Russia is this kind of, it's always been this way, where it's just this super proud nation that operates within a global world, but still kind of does their own thing and is somewhat isolated. And if you look back at, there's like reports that have come out about like Putin when he was in the KGB and his like the profiles that they did on him, his kind of psychological profile and stuff. And the reoccurring theme from all these profiles they did over the years was he has just a much, much, much higher risk tolerance than a normal human being. His propensity for risk and how he weighs risk and rewards is very different. And so as a world leader, that's dangerous. That's dangerous, right? He's going to take actions that most other world leaders wouldn't, because most world leaders, they kind of
think about the
risk reward, and for him it's not balanced.
Right.
And so he just cares about the Russian country, the pride of Russia, right? And that's what he's going to, he's going to operate with that kind of in his mind, and wants to be respected, wants to be, looked at as an equal, wants to be powerful. And yeah, I mean, they have like 100,000 plus troops that they've amassed at the border. They have, tanks, fighter jets, like all kinds of stuff. And we've sent 10,000 soldiers over there, not into Ukraine, but like ready to
help Ukraine,
to support. But yeah, it's,
but why do we need to get involved? I don't understand that, right? Like, why don't we just not do that? Is it because of the allies and like they're allies, and so if something ever happens, they would come here? And like, really, who's to say they would come here? You know what I mean?
It is an interesting question, and it's one that, like, so there's a lot of Americans who are more are against kind of this idea of like being the world's police,
Right.
Right. Which seems to be, since World War II, we've become the global
We get involved in everything.
police. We have more military bases around the world than anybody else.
Right.
Where basically we have soldiers in dozens and dozens and dozens of countries, and we feel the need to get involved in issues between other countries. And I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of reasons why people do that, right? There's definitely economic and financial reasons, which I think drives a lot of decisions around war, right? It's a big business. And then there's the idea of like protecting democracy, right? Is another one. If communist nations take over or different types of countries take over, then it spreads that type of political ideology, which could be dangerous if that spreads. And then there's, we have allies and people we're protecting. I tend to lean more towards what you're saying, which is, I think, like,
especially right now,
we stick our heads into a lot of other, our nose and not our heads. We stick our entire body into people's, right? So we don't just stick our nose into people's business. We put everything into people's business. But we do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably actually led to more negative consequences.
Agreed.
Because we built more enemies and people that view us as hostile. And again, like, this is probably going to be like a controversial statement. But like, I try to do this where I try to look at things from another party's viewpoint, right? So we view America as good and righteous and on the right side of history because we're Americans, right, and we were born here and that's how we were taught, all that stuff, right? If you were born in Russia or North Korea or Palestine or Iraq or Iran or wherever, Syria, you have the exact opposite view. If you're a kid, you grew up your entire life, and like, let's say you grew up in Iraq, right, or countries that we've had a military presence for a long time, and all you've seen your entire life, you live this really terrible life. Like you're living in the desert. You don't have a lot of food. You don't have a lot of water. You don't have a lot of resources, and all you're seeing is men with guns and tanks and planes every day of your life, patrolling the streets, arresting people, taking people. You're going to have a very different view of us than we do.
Right.
And so I think it's hard to like just totally write off enemies and say like, they're wrong, we're right, we're good, they're bad. Because it's all relative. Right. It all depends on what side you're on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, long story short, I tend to agree that I think we should invest a lot of our military budget into other things that are actually going to improve the lives of Americans. Mm-hmm. We should stay in our borders, with exceptions, right? I think if there's a clear, like you look at, World War II, where you have a sociopath and a horrible dictator and leader like a Hitler, right?
Right.
That's just invading and taking country after country after country, and clearly is not going to stop.
And it's working.
And he has these horrible camps where he's just committing genocide and horrific acts that are unspeakable. That's one thing. That's a direct threat to us eventually. Right. It's coming to our door.
It's coming.
With Russia, like I'm not a geopolitical expert and I don't understand this, but it seems like Putin he wants certain territories back. Mm-hmm. I don't think Putin wants to take over the world. I think he wants to take over territories that were taken from the Soviet Union and reclaim a certain level of glory and respect, and he just wants some wins, and he wants to be on the same playing field. I think that's what he wants.
Yeah.
Now, again, that sucks. If you live in Ukraine, these countries, like, that is shitty because that's going to impact you directly.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, we can't solve everybody's problem, and we can't fix everyone's problems. And I think until we fix all of our issues, it's hard to say we're going to solve the, hunger problem in a different country when we have American kids who go to bed hungry. Like, it sounds, mean and cruel.
I agree with you. I mean,
but it's practical.
We have done nothing but be segregated in the past few years, and there's a lot of problems in the U.S. Right now, everything is tanking. Correction, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like as of this moment, a lot of stuff is in the red. There's a lot of segregation, and there's a lot of things that need help here today. And instead we're like, well, like Russia has beef. Let's jump over there real quick. It's almost like trying to create a diversion because you're trying to avoid the issues that are happening right now with like some other person's beef. Like, if you want to do it later, maybe consider it, maybe have more conversations, get more of an understanding of what's happening. None of it has to do with you right now. What has to do with you is like all the problems that are pressing at this moment. And we're just avoiding that, not supporting it financially and like logically here to go get in a fight. I feel like it's the silliest thing in the world, but I can also see it happening. I mean, it most likely 100% it's going to happen actually.
Yeah, and I guess the big question to ask too is like, we've been the world's police for a very, very, very long time. And is the world a safer and better and more peaceful place
because
today than it was before we got into it? Not including World War II, but just like after World War II, like once that kind of both world wars ended. And I don't know, like you can play this game where it's like, what caused a spike in terrorism? Is it our consistent presence in the Middle East and our pushing of democracy on somebody that didn't want democracy? Or would it have happened regardless? Would these ideologies have spread and all this stuff would have happened whether we were isolationists or whether we were pushing? I don't have the answer. You can't go back in time and you can't play the game differently. But I would argue that, everything has it's a cause and effect. And so the more we force our will on people, the more enemies we are going to create, right? Yeah. When we have a presence in somebody else's country, and it's like, I don't know, for me, it's we take it for granted that we just live the life we live. But like, could you imagine if we just every day we woke up and I came here to the office, shoot a podcast, and there's just like dudes with M4s and tanks just on the street, just I
probably wouldn't have an office. We'd be recording this, like sharing a phone in a shack.
Yeah, but if that was our life, like, could you imagine just like you're living that life every day, and like eventually, like this is just leave, like just get out of our. Like, I don't want to be scared. Yeah. It's like even if I know you're not going to hurt me, but like just seeing that presence of weapons, it's terrifying. Yeah, and so we just live such a sheltered, different life than most of the world. Yeah. And we believe that we're doing good all the time and that we have a net positive benefit to societies when we're there. And I don't know if that's the solution.
Joe Rogan, we'll have to come and we'll have to have a discussion with him. But big thing from as takeaways from this podcast, guys, is if the market's red, just hold. Just really be more patient and be more grateful. We live in a great place that's fixing itself, and it's going to continue to thrive, and a lot of opportunities are going to come. And if you're invested in stuff, learn to be some sort of relaxing guy. Like, take a chill pill. Just be patient. Things will correct themselves, and they'll be better. And for the growth of long term, you will be in a great place. Quick announcement before we go. This weekend, Max and I are going to announce on Twitter and on Instagram a competition, challenge. What is it called? It's not
contest.
A contest. Yeah, it's giveaway, a contest.
Something.
It's a giveaway. So we're gonna do a giveaway. All the details are gonna be in our Instagram. So make sure you follow at MaxBin and at Los Hustle. We're gonna give you the details of that inside. We're gonna make a feed post. It'll tell you what to do. But it's gonna have a lot to do with subscribing and sharing this. So please subscribe, guys. Share. If you want to wait till the weekend to do that and see if you can win these prizes, that'll be fine. But that is it for this episode, guys. We will see you on the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.